Hey everybody, what is up? It is the Science of Flipping podcast. I am your host, Justin Colby, and if you happen to be watching this, you will see I have two very, very special guests with me, Mr. Steve Enns and Josh Alter. What's up, boys?
Yo, hey, Justin.
Right on. Well, I want to make this episode all about text messaging. It is the hot new marketing strategy. It's new, relatively new, I guess I would say, newer than direct mail, let's say. And I know you guys are absolutely crushing it. Not only are you crushing text messaging, but you are actually doing a virtual wholesaling business too. So I'm honored that both of you guys took a little bit of time out of your day to be on my podcast here. And again, you guys are in Canada, wholesaling in the US, and I think it's absolutely phenomenal, dude. So welcome.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your background. 30-second elevator pitch of the two of you. I do know I was your first coach and I got you guys to get going and off your seats, which is great. But I want to hear your version of it because in my head, it sounds awesome. So I just want to hear your guys' version of it. And then we'll kind of get into marketing, tracking marketing results and what to do with text messaging to make it successful.
That's awesome. Steve, you want to give it a run?
Yeah, so I guess just like the Coles Notes version of it, Josh and I decided one morning over breakfast really to go to the seminar, not really knowing anything about wholesaling at that stage, but we went to the seminar. We had no intention of becoming business partners at that stage or anything like that, but we went and this concept of wholesaling came up and we're like, oh, that's pretty cool. So we're going to sign up for this thing. Something didn't feel right, mostly the price tag that was associated with it. And we decided that we were going to go look for something else. There's someone else. There had to be someone else that was doing this. So we found you guys, right? And messaged, and we're going back and forth. And just eventually one day decided, shortly thereafter, probably a couple months after that, I think it was springtime, after Josh and I had done everything wrong, like got business cards, paid for thousands of dollars for a website that we don't use, we decided to get a coach, and it just so happened to be you. So we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. I remember having the conversation, like it was 15,000 US or something like that. And all I can remember from those conversations is like, you guys are going to get that money back. Like you're going to make your money back. I promise you, you're going to make your money back. Well, we've made our money back and then some. So like for that, we're like, I think Josh, it goes to say like, we're super grateful for that, to have you coach us through that. I'm not just saying that because we're on your podcast, but we do love you.
Love you boys
and too. Have much respect for you. So anyways, that's what started us off. Josh and I were Canadians, and you always like to make fun of us, like we overanalyze everything to death. So we did that. Eventually, we decided that after basically threatened to like fire us as students, you told us to go to Austin or decide on where market. Pick a market. Josh and I took 15 minutes. We decided, Austin, Texas, and we've been there for the last 5 years.
Yeah. Josh, you want to jump in?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, we're in our fifth year. Austin, Texas has kind of been our core since the very beginning. About 7 months ago, we opened up into Georgia, which was a big learning experience for us. Having done this for 5 years virtually, we kind of felt like we had a lot of it figured out, and then we went into a new market and we realized how much we had to learn. So that was back in September, October. We spent the last part of 2019 really just kind of dialing in our systems, our process, our marketing, refocusing in on our buyer relationships, and really just dialing in the business. So now Atlanta is firing, Texas is going really well, and we got a big vision. Like we want to go national. We will go national over the next couple of years. Corporate based here in Vancouver, but just doing deals right across the nation. So it's an exciting time for us. And again, 5 years ago we met you. Fortunate to have kept in contact. Now I consider us to be friends, and we get the opportunity to see each other a couple times a year, which is great. And every time I'm back in the room, it's just like it's a gut check, right? It's like, okay, we're hanging out with the right people. So yeah, it's pretty grateful to have the opportunity here to be talking with you and your people.
Well, I'm glad you guys spared some time because I do know how busy you guys are, but I do give you guys a lot of your own kudos because as easy it is for a coach to tell you what to do, right? It's a lot harder for someone to execute. And so you guys absolutely executed the plan. And what you've done really well is you've actually been able to pivot when you needed to pivot. The reason why I find at least one thing I credit for my success is that ability, right? Be a chameleon. When the waters turn a different wave, right? Like you need to be able to adjust, and you guys have done that really, really well to the point of now opening up multiple markets. And again, for those listening, like you guys are in Canada, not even in the States. So when people talk about being able to do this virtually, and you're going after difficult markets, Austin is not an easy market. Atlanta is not an easy market, but you've now refined your systems enough to be able to actually do this and open up those markets. So you guys deserve all the credit, right? I mean, I helped you guide that ship, but ultimately now you are, real-time pivoting, you're making adjustments. And so you guys have done an incredible job. And the reason why I really wanted you guys on here is because you had no choice but to market, right? You didn't have the network. There wasn't the already camaraderie within the space. You didn't live in the cities. Like you didn't have a lot of the intangibles that someone like myself did. Or
there's no bandit signs, driving for dollars, RIA meetings, meetups, networking events, none of that.
None of it. And so you invested in education with myself. And that is the best decision you possibly can. I had a conversation with a personal coach. I do a lot of personal coaching still. And, one of the things that they talked about was that cost. And I told them they're just, they're not at the right level. Like they can't think that way. It is an investment, because I said, okay, how much have I cost you? And I'm going to leave that blank. And how much have you made? And then they realized they had this aha, oh, I invested in something and it gave me a real return, right? Yeah. It's a real ROI. And so you guys did that. And then you immediately took well, you didn't immediately take action.
Couple of months
in classic Canadian form. You thought about a lot of things. You got ready to get ready, but it's not just you two. I actually do find that to be like a Canadian trait. I swear to God.
And we apologize a lot too. So
you do, and you don't need to, because you guys are crushing it. Everything happens in the time it needs to happen in with the situation. So you guys are doing great. I'm so proud of you guys for getting to the place where you're at today. And if I can continue to be a help and a guiding light for you guys, I'm absolutely going to do that. But today I want you guys to talk about kind of your marketing strategies. As I've kind of taught you and so many other people, is I always believe in multiple marketing strategies. I think the only time I've ever really gotten hurt within marketing is when I went all in on just one strategy, right? Like I was acquiring directly from the auction, and then all of a sudden the hedge funds came in, and I couldn't pay the prices they could pay. So now all of a sudden I can't buy any deals. If you can't buy deals, you can't sell deals, right? I went all in on direct mail. It was my only marketing. And then all of a sudden the direct mail callback ratio started decreasing drastically. Well, I don't have anything to help float that boat while all of a sudden this is going down, right? And so you guys took that to heart, and I know you guys have done several different marketing strategies, and you continue to. But I really want to talk about kind of text messaging and how that's really changed the game. That is a new, you and I both use Launch Control, and there will be a link to Launch Control in this comment section. So don't worry about that. But talk to us about what you guys have done with marketing and how it's transitioned with the different marketing strategies, but also now how you're including text messaging and how that's changed the game for you guys.
Yeah. So as you kind of mentioned, we have evolved, right? Like when we started 5 years ago, direct mail was kind of the thing, right? And so there was no texting platform, like none of that.
Totally.
Yeah, and PPC was kind of beyond our scope in terms of budget, right? So we started layering on the direct mail, and then eventually we got to a point where we layered on PPC. That's kind of been hit and miss. And it's frankly really in the last year where we've really dialed in SMS and cold calling. I kind of wish that we started it a bit earlier, but we kind of are where we are. And so as it stands right now, SMS and cold calling are our primary lead sources. SMS from an ROI perspective is absolutely crushing it. and Steve is really close to the launch control platform. But the comment I'll make on that is I think the shift that we're making with SMS, we went from the approach of being much more to the masses, volume based. And then when we really started to dial in launch control, we were able to take a much more targeted sales approach to SMS. And I think that that's the shift that we're now starting to see. And the ROI is really starting to the payback is there, right? So, Steve, you can definitely jump in, but the beautiful thing about launch control from a system perspective is the automation, the follow-up, and the ability for you to function as a salesperson as opposed to being this robot of just sending out SMS. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah. So to add on what Josh was saying, we've tried a bunch of different things. So once, and something that we've always talked about, Justin, in our groups is, having like the pillars of marketing, right? And how important it is to have multiple marketing sources working for you, because you don't know when something's just going to fall right off, right?
That's
like,
right.
Had we invested everything in direct mail and COVID hit, and then everyone's like, I'm not touching that piece of paper. I'm not touching it, right? Like, then we would have been, shit out of luck, right? But so like the importance of having multiple sources is super important. Keeping track of it, different story, completely different conversation. Like that's something that Josh, kudos to him because he has really dialed this down. So we know when to throttle back and when to go forward.
You're talking about
right?
Like KPIs, tracking leads, tracking costs. Yeah.
So like, we can get into a whole other discussion about that because we have it really dialed in. But going back to like text messaging, the thing I like, and we've done masses, right? And the thing with that is that you spend a lot of time going through all this stuff. Not only that, like you need a shit ton of records to be able, that's another big issue that we were having, is that you need so many records to be able to like do that volume, right?
Yep.
So what launch control comes in is that it is much more of a customer-centric or client-centric focus. It's a much more nurturing system. The user interface, and like I'm not plugging this for any reason other than it works.
Yeah.
Like the user interface is much more user-friendly.
Totally.
It also has in this day and age, like follow-up campaigns are super important, right? So like every deal that we've gotten, most of them, I'd say 90% of the deals we get are from follow-up, right? Yep. And it's just like what launch control is thought of, which other platforms have not, at least to my knowledge. They have a whole drip campaign, right? So you can put someone on a drip campaign, and then based on the parameters you set, it's going to start messaging those people back automatically without you having to do anything. So, for us, it is a much more, you need less records. We still, I think, do, 1,000 a day or so, somewhere around there.
Really?
Maybe slightly more. So we're still doing quite a lot, but
yeah.
It's not the 8,000, 9,000 that we were doing before, right?
Right.
A day,
yeah, right.
per day. So that just gets really messy. So the great thing about this is that the results we get tend to be a lot higher motivated, like the motivated leads they're better. In general, the platform is just, I think it's a superior platform to what we've used in the past.
For sure. Yeah. And so talk about that follow-up, because, I get a lot of questions from newbies, right? Is text messaging right for you, right? Or right for them? Like, should I do text messaging? Obviously you talk about it, Justin, and talk about kind of your process that makes it successful, because like you, I actually have virtual assistants now doing my outbound and a certain level of my communication to find out if they're looking to sell and if they're warm. And once they're warm, my process is now that goes over to my acquisition team.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that has really changed our game, because the volume can go up. It doesn't go up to like 8,000 like you guys were talking about, but we do roughly about 1,200 a day. And what that allows us to do is only talk to people that can get far enough down the road to say, yes, I'm interested in talking about selling my home. And that has really changed the game for us in Phoenix, because of my acquisition team is only engaging with people that have any interest. They don't even need to be reasonable, right? Like they still might want $1 million for their $250,000 home, but at least they're only talking to someone who is thinking of selling, right? Yeah. And so tell me your process and what you guys do.
Well, yeah. So I'll start, and Josh, you can add. Let me know if I miss anything. But basically, what happens, and just for that, like we have an acquisitions team now. And to answer your first question, or to add to something you said, absolutely, in my opinion, you should be doing text messaging. It is like back to when we started, Josh. Like the cost of entry, like direct mail, the response rates, all of those things were things that we had to deal with, right? You're getting 2%, 3% if you're lucky response rates on mail, but you have to mail them every single, every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it's tough, right? And it's expensive. So for us, when we opened up Atlanta, like the way that we did that was through text messaging. And we hadn't been doing text messaging before that, right?
Really?
We had not done any text messaging prior. So that was all new to us. And we started text messaging, and the response is immediate. So that's great. It's working, which is good, because how many people do you work with that are new? They're like, I don't know if this mail's working. Like, I don't know if I'm getting the responses. You get immediate feedback. So what we've done now, though, is we want our acquisitions focused on that 20%, right? We have a VA, Riva Global. Actually, I was speaking with Bob earlier today. So he has VAs that are specifically trained on launch control. Him and Aaron, they've come together and they've figured this out, and they go through like a month-long training. It's crazy. I didn't know this before they even get on there.
That's
right?
Who I use too. So I use the same guys.
Right. So we have now VAs, and so the VAs are going through and they're vetting everyone and making sure that they push over warm leads to us. And like to date, we have, I think, 10 from Monday to now that have been completely vetted. So once we get them, the acquisitions team gets them, they move over from launch control, which is this kind of CRM in itself. And the only leads that get pushed over to our Podio system are leads that have been warm. They're vetted. They want to call back from us. And then that's when the acquisitions team picks it up, and then they work the lead and then put it up on, a follow-up campaign or whatever needs to happen. They do, right? But that's, in, I guess, kind of a short term, that's our process.
So in Atlanta, how long have you guys been in Atlanta now when you opened it?
Technically, October is when we started marketing into Atlanta.
How long did it take you to get your first deal in Atlanta?
Longer than I'd like to. Well, actually, we got the one small deal pretty quick, right? That 3,000 pop. But then we went through a pretty decent phase of fallout, which was not really
dark period.
It was a dark period, but it wasn't, frankly, I think, due to the marketing or frankly, even our acquisitions. It was due to a breakdown in the disposition. We did not prioritize building a quality buyers list out of the gates. We had a few key relationships we thought could carry us as we ramped up.
Yeah.
That did not perform. And so we were signing contracts, we were getting deals, and our fallout, our closing percentage was like 25% or something. It was real bad. But the contracts were coming pretty quick.
Right. I wanted to add that, like, we were getting deals.
Yeah.
And we had some crazy things. Atlanta's crazy. Like it is a crazy market. Like there's some stuff there I've never seen. So we did not know how to manage any of that, and we lost some deals because of it. But we were signing deals through text messaging. Like that was our primary lead source. So we were getting deals. But yeah, to Josh's point, and this is a lesson, we heavily underestimated the importance and the value of the dispo side of the
100%. And I think I've beaten this horse to absolute death about that, but that really is what I term the gold in our business, right? So people go into this, and you guys have aspirations to be a national wholesaler, which I love, and I will encourage that continuously for you guys to go conquer the world. But what I do understand is the real only asset that will be sellable until you bring in some other folds, you can't sell a wholesale company, is your buyer's list. And that is something that is proven to be an asset that you can actually sell, right? And so the importance behind that is you really do have to start with the end in mind. You've heard it from myself and Kent forever because of what you guys just experienced, which is simply you guys were doing everything awesomely on the front end in the acquisitions. And then it got to who's my buyer? Where am I going to find my buyer? And it fell apart. But so kind of just getting back to, you got that first deal really quickly over text message, correct?
Yep. Oh yeah. Like,
have you gotten all your deals over text message in Atlanta?
No, I'd say it's probably, I don't have the exact number, but we're pretty close to a 50-50 in terms of cold call and SMS. But our cold call in many ways follows a similar process, right? Our callers are vetting the leads, and our acquisition team are only talking to leads that have been qualified and pushed over. So it's the same kind of methodology, right? We're trying to have our closers talking to qualified leads, and our VA team, our cold call team, doing all the front end stuff to really, whittle that list down, right? So it's about a 50-50 split right now, pretty evenly so far this quarter.
That's great. And so what would be one thing that you would tell someone, again, I field a lot of questions by, should I do texting, right? Like, why would you suggest texting, and how has it kind of changed your business?
I was going to say right off the bat, it's probably the most cost-effective form of marketing to get going, right? There's tons of places to get your data, whether it's Smart, PropStream, you name it. But to Steve's earlier point, your ability to assess the quality of your list almost immediately, based on, valid, invalid numbers, suppression rates, all that sorts of stuff, it's super helpful. Your ability to throttle up and throttle down based on the volume that's coming in. And that has probably been one of the most exciting things that's happened to our business in the last couple of months. Steve and I, on a daily basis, we look at our inbound lead count, and we're assessing, is our acquisition team, do they have the capacity to work those leads, to do the follow-up? And if we need to, we can pause our SMS, we can scale it up, we can scale it down. So the ability to, on a daily basis, move those levers to drive leads is pretty powerful. And it's immediate, right? It really is. And I think we're finding, Steve, like usually, I think when we looked at the numbers, it was like 20 on average, 24 days from when that lead's pushed over from our SMS team to when we get to contract. So that time to convert those leads is really quick as well. Whereas, direct mail typically is a much longer lead cycle. So yes, I think speed and cost are probably some of the main reasons to get it going. And then when you have a tool like Launch Control, and you potentially bring on a VA to kind of help you with that front end, you can really just focus in on the high quality converting leads.
Yeah. What is your actual process? How do you consider it to be a lead? What is your VA saying for you to now get that as a lead to start working? Like what makes it a lead?
So we want to verify that we're dealing with the owner of a property first and foremost, right? Because you do get a lot of people that, I don't own a property, or, there's obviously the FUs and all of that stuff. So we scrub all that out. But generally speaking, it's someone that owns a piece of property. They're interested in entertaining an offer, and they're open to selling typically within the next 30 to 60 days. That's usually how we determine. I don't know, Steve, is that accurate?
Yeah. So we use Slack as our channel too. Sure. So our VAs, like when they'll push it over and they'll go into like Podio and our Zen call system that we have.
Yep.
I won't get into that, but we also set up a Slack channel. So they will enter in every single lead. Some like it might get lost, right? So, things that we're looking for is the status. So what does the property look like? What sort of things need to be done. They give a rating like 1 out of 10, like what's the property, what conditions the property in. I'm looking at one right now. This person's given it a 6. Motivation, they need to find a new place. They're downsizing, so they're getting older, right?
Yep.
They have the asking price. They've given the time frame. They need to move ASAP. They're downsizing. They want to buy another house, and then some information. So like that is a good lead. Okay, so like that is someone who there's a pain point. They have to have a pain point. One of the things that I love most is, I heard it the other day, a few weeks ago, is that, people go looking for properties. Well, we go looking for the problem. Like you have to look for the problem. If there's no problem, there's no deal, right? There has to be something that you can solve. So, someone who's like, I want retail value, we can't solve that problem unless there's something underneath that, right? Mm-hmm. So what I've gotten our VAs to do with the training that Bob's team and stuff like that is to go a couple layers deep before they push it over. So it's not just someone that's like, yeah, I'm interested in an offer. There's a legitimate something there.
Yeah.
So
no, I love it.
Yeah. So that's what the process. And once we get that, they call, and then we go through our script and all that sort of stuff. So, and then there's the getting the contract over the phone part and that stuff, right? But that's the process on the SMS side of it.
Yeah, that's great. Wow, it just changed everything. So I think that the key that a lot of people, especially when someone's starting out and about to spend some money, the reason why I suggest it is first of all, your open rate is 100%, right? So direct mail, and I think Josh, you were the one that said kind of like you send it out hoping someone's going to call back, right? Like you don't really know. And cold calling people, and I do this all day long, I ignore calls all day long, right? But text messages get 100% open ratio. Even the ones that are like marketing, like Nordstrom's will send me a text message, and I still open the damn thing because I'm like, is there a sale at Nordstrom's?
What are they offering?
Yeah. Right? I get 100% open ratio. Now, what
is that how you bought your camera?
From an app or a text message?
There's an ad,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is great.
My camera. Anyways, the thing that really, really makes me suggest this is because the engagement. You have immediate engagement. And now we are at a spot where we have outsourced this, but for someone who is starting, they need to be doing this themselves. And you very quickly start to learn. You get your reps in very fast. You will learn exactly what to say, what not to say, what can get them over the edge, what questions to ask. And again, kind of just promoting launch control, for lack of a better way of saying it. They've done a lot of that work for you because Aaron's a real investor. He does this for his business. He built this for his business. So they upload a ton of that type of content for the newbie. And listen, that's, as an educator, that's really massively helpful because usually that will be the next question, which would be, well, what do I say? Yeah. Well, they already have all those replies that takes the thought process out that you can already go with. So, I mean, the engagement is my number one answer for why start there. Cost is the next. I mean, cost is relative because depending upon how many you can get through in a day, you got to skip trace those same people, right? And so there are cheaper lead and skip tracing services. Just the accuracy isn't quite there. And so, I mean, I just love text messaging. I know you guys have been crushing it with text messaging, not just in one city, but in two cities, and not just in the cities you are in. You're not even in the country. And so I really wanted to have you guys on talking about this.
Yeah. And, one thing you brought up, and I wanted to just add to what Josh was saying, because, the cost efficiency is super important, especially when I'm thinking of it starting out. Like if this had been available for us starting out, like this would have made things so much easier. Not just because like you're looking for the easy way to do things, but it's more efficient.
Right.
And when you're kind of sitting there starting out and like you have all this time to think, right? Not a good place to be. Like you're overthinking everything. And so the sooner you can get sellers calling or messaging with you, the sooner you get on the phone, like you start being more active, and the more active you get, like the more real it seems. And then you're not in your head as much and you're having these conversations. And then, I can only imagine like how something like this, when we started out, would have really made a big difference in our ability to just ramp up quickly.
Yep.
Because when you're waiting for those phone calls and then there's a phone call and you're like, oh shit, like this phone call is worth $1,000 right now. It's a pretty frightening thing if you've never done it before, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to like, the people feel safe behind this. Like you can talk to people like this, and then you can warm up that message to the point where you're like, hey, maybe it's a good time for us to have a phone call now.
Totally.
And the person's like, yeah, this is a great time. Okay, great. So like, hey, finally, great to talk to you.
Right.
So it's a much more warm sort of, way of going about it than like, what's this letter for? Like, I'm not selling my house.
There's no doubt. I mean, all in all, it is just if someone's going to spend money as a marketer, I would encourage text messaging to be their first platform because of the cost. Direct mail, PPC is too expensive. I really love cold calling, and you can make an argument for that, especially if they're doing it themselves. I would always encourage to do both, quite frankly, because you're already skip tracing it. So if I was just getting started, why wouldn't I text and call? I mean, you literally could be texting on launch control and calling because the triple line dialer is just going. I mean, you're already spending the big money, which is the skip tracing, and that's relative, right? And so Well, dude, guys, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with us today here at the Science Flipping. The launch control link as well as the Revo Global link will just be in the comments below if you guys want to check them out. Launch control gives you a big hookup on skip tracing. As I told you, that's the most expensive thing. If you just say you heard about them from Justin or the Science Flipping, they'll give you a hookup on skip tracing. But that is all, guys. I appreciate you.